And with that, we pop up our Super Bowl 60 bracket. It's finalized, and here to help me discuss it, NFL analyst Albert Lanier. And Albert, busy weekend for everybody here, and now it's finalized. You're seeing this just like I am. What stands out, and what surprised you the most heading into the weekend for this to be set in stone?
All right. So, looking at the last week, week 18, um, because this is partly to talk a little about week 18. Yeah, I've heard some commentators and some hosts and some analysts talk about how the games on Sunday weren't that great up until, of course, Sunday Night Football between the Steelers and the Ravens. But there actually were a couple of some good games. The Colts Texans game was very good. It went down nearly to the wire, not quite the wire. And I would say it's hard to say right now. And again, I use the term potential. I stress potential. Riley Leonard made his debut and had a terrific debut. Of course, a couple things went against him. He had a fumble and he had an interception, but he also threw a touchdown very early on in the game and ran for a touchdown. And so, as an NFL analyst, there are only two things that I really think that I can do. One that differs me from anyone else, right?
Right.
Number one, I can spot talent. I'm not saying other analysts can't, but that's something I've always kind of prided myself in before I got into this crazy racket. That I could spot talent on the field. And I look at Riley Leonard, and I look at this guy, and he has, to use the 1983 movie, the right stuff to be a potential star quarterback, or at least a good quarterback in the NFL. I mean, he can sling the ball effectively. His deep passes were good. Even his shorter passes were effective to his receivers. And so, again, you're going to have to give this guy some more games. I assume that the Colts are not going to let go of this guy. Because if I'm looking at some other NFL teams, I'd be like, "Oh, we need a quarterback. Get that guy." If I were the GM of some of these teams, even head coach, I'd be looking at Riley Leonard. Now, granted, he only had one game, but the potential is there. The potential is there. And it makes me think, had this guy not had a knee injury, I think it was a knee injury that prevented him from playing. Had this guy not had an injury, maybe the Colts season would have been different.
Yeah.
Maybe they would have made it to the playoffs. So you had that game. You had the Bears. I'm a Cubs fan. The Chicago Bears play the Detroit Lions in an excellent game. That came down to the wire, even though there's nothing for either team to play for. The Lions are just playing for pride, and the Bears are just playing to move into the playoffs on a more positive note. But that went down. Bears came back after the Lions had led, and the Lions ended up winning by a field goal in that game. Excellent game. And I'd also take a look at, I wouldn't say this was an excellent game, but I think it was significant that the Raiders won and they beat the Chiefs. That was more of a game of field goals, but considering how bad their season is, and the fact that Pete Carroll's now been fired, it seems like he's going to move on from the Raiders. To have a victory, at least by a couple points, over their hated rival, the Kansas City Chiefs, it's kind of a nice way for the Raiders to head off into the offseason after a horrific season where they were one of the worst teams in the NFL. Also, they're going to hopefully draft well. Hopefully Mendoza.
Yeah.
I say that as somebody who's I'm a fan of three teams, and Raiders is one of them. As a Raiders fan, I say that. I guess that's also why I wore
Yeah.
this jersey. I normally wouldn't wear and haven't worn jersey, but I figure it's the end of this
Yeah.
NFL regular season. But of course, the outstanding game of Week 18 was Sunday Night Football, Pittsburgh Steelers versus the Baltimore Ravens. Um, I think it was about everything you could expect in a game.
Yeah.
Lead changes, especially in the late couple of quarters, in the second half. You had some terrific catches in this game. You had a failed point after attempt and ultimately a failed field goal attempt that sent the Steelers to the playoffs and, of course, allowed them to win the AFC North. And this just highlights what I've said on this show since I've come on the show and I've been analyzing games here. And I've said that the 2025 season for the NFL has at least one great game per week. This, in my mind, has been a unique year for the NFL in regards to the kind of games that you've had. Every week has had at least an excellent to great game. I don't know what the 2026 season will bring. I don't know what 2027 or 2028 will bring in terms of games, but this season is going to stand out for the NFL in terms of some of these games. These games, and I could cite a number of them, the Dallas Giants game early on, even the Dallas Green Bay Packers game, the first game in the first week, the Bills Ravens game. You had Bills playing Buccaneers, another great game. And of course, you had Rams Seahawks. And of course, you also had 49ers Chicago. I'm rattling off several of these.
Right.
You've had excellent to great games every week, at least one or two of them every week in the NFL. So I would say that this has been a successful season for the NFL in terms of the regular season in regards to quality of a number of the games that you've seen. If you haven't been, I don't like the term entertained, if you haven't been glued to your device or your laptop or your PC or your, flat screen TV over a number of these games, you're either an idiot, don't know anything about the NFL, or you're not into the NFL. Because a number of these games that I mentioned, and there are others, have been, as they would say in the NBA or the old ads for the NBA, fantastic.
Yes.
They have been. And Sunday Night Football ended on a spectacular game. There's no question. Now, I say that as somebody who is also a Steelers fan. And I don't like to talk about the fan aspect because I'm here to analyze games. But I'll be honest, I hate watching games like that. As a Steelers fan and just as a fan of the three teams that I am, but especially as a Steelers fan, I hated watching that game. And I hated watching it because of the seesaw roller coaster nature. For other people, they love that sort of thing. For me, it's just my nerves are on end and or I should say on edge as well. And it was tense. It was really tense. And thank goodness, it literally went the way of the Steelers, and they're going to go to the postseason, and we'll see what happens after that. But that, of course, brings us to the actual postseason itself.
Right. You're looking at this bracket here. Denver, we'll start in the AFC. Denver, the number one seed. Houston and Pittsburgh, 4-5. Buffalo, Jacksonville, 6-3. Chargers at 7. New England at 2. Who would you say has? I wouldn't say maybe there are no easy routes to Santa Clara, but But one team that you're saying based off this, they have a pretty good path forward.
Well, I think when it comes to the AFC, you have to go with the teams that have led thus far in terms of a path forward or a seeming path or obvious path forward. You have to go with Denver because, number one, Denver has been able to win games, especially late within the games in the third and fourth quarter. They've been able to do that. They've won some games, outright, being able to score enough touchdowns to win and dominate it outright. But for the most part, I would say that Denver is a team that is they seem to have a pretty good, because of the number one seed. That doesn't mean that they're guaranteed to go to the Super Bowl. But
Correct.
I think in regards to the way they've set themselves up, they have a great path forward in regards to the AFC. And, that's basically it. I'd also look at New England.
Okay.
I think they have a good shot, too, of doing it. I think ultimately, though, the pressure is on the Buffalo Bills. The pressure is on them because there's no Kansas City. And in the AFC, it's what I call a pure playoff year. There are no dynasties. There are no major forces, no other teams that can dominate and get in the way. These are all teams. Some of them have been in the playoffs before, like Denver and Buffalo, and of course Houston, and of course Pittsburgh. So you've got some retreads, but New England hasn't been there for a while, for a couple years. Jacksonville hasn't been there for a few years. So it's going to be interesting I think it's going to be slightly interesting depending on who makes it.
Okay.
Now, of course, I'm a Pittsburgh fan, so it's clear who I'm for personally.
Yeah.
But professionally, I would say Denver and New England have some of the best paths forward if we go with the sort of cliched, stereotyped paths forward.
Okay. Based on last night, why should Pittsburgh be hopeful?
Well, number one, they were able to maximize their personnel offensively. And a lot of that had to do with the QB1, Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers was able to do what he had done in previous playoff games, and that is throw and pass effectively, especially late in the game. If you look at that touchdown to Austin, that's a good example of that. You've got a change maker and a playmaker in Aaron Rodgers. So that's the biggest hopeful thing. Plus the maximizing of offensive personnel in a way that I haven't seen in previous years. Offensive personnel done well. They have an interesting group there offensively. You have Valdez-Scantling, you have Adam Thielen. It looks like DK Metcalf will be hopefully coming back for the playoffs. So it's a good collection of veterans and experienced players, led, of course, by a very experienced Aaron Rodgers. So that's a big reason for them to be hopeful. And I think the defense also is playing fairly well and can do it. Even with T.J. Watt's issues. Oh, sorry, this is J.J. Watt's. I forget.
Yeah.
Watt's issues with his collapsed lung, he was still able to come back and perform well enough in this game and got a turnover against the Ravens. So I think that the Steelers have a lot to be hopeful for. I think the main thing is that they're in the playoffs. I think that's the main thing with this season, that the Steelers are in the playoffs.
Let's switch over to the NFC, and everybody in my circle is interested. They have their eyes on that 4-5 matchup, Carolina and Los Angeles. Based on what we saw on Saturday night, what does Carolina have to do better against this Rams team?
Okay, so I'll start with this game, and I can go into all the other games in the NFC, and then move on to the AFC, if that works for you.
That's fine with me. Yeah.
Right. So this is an interesting matchup. Looking at these matchups, since we're into the playoffs now, I do like this matchup. And the reason I like this matchup is because Carolina played the Rams previously, and they played a dominant game. They played one of the best games of the season against the Rams. Carolina has been really a hit-and-miss team this year, and they were fortunate to get to the playoffs. But I like the fact that Carolina is going in and not Tampa Bay, because I think Tampa Bay's just exhausted. I think they're just worn out. I think what Carolina has to do against the Rams, if they're going to have a chance, they've got to run the ball.
Okay.
Their defense also has to have the kind of game they had against the Rams, if not better. You've got to get to Stafford. You've got to sack him at least three, maybe four times. You've got to also get turnovers. That's the major thing. You got to get turnovers. I say Carolina, in order to win this game, if they have a chance of winning, they need to get at least 2 turnovers, minimum. If they can't get any turnovers, I don't think it'll be impossible for them to win. I think it will be hard. And that's because Carolina is not consistent. They're not a consistent team. They're capable of playing great games like they did against the Rams, against the Packers, even against the Dallas Cowboys. They could do that. They need a game like maybe the Dallas Cowboys and the Packers. They need that kind of game, plus the game that they had against the Rams previously, in order to win against LA. That would be what's necessary. And that's why I like this matchup. For me, I think it's just a win-win that Carolina got in. It's a building process for the Panthers. So if they lose, I don't think it's the end of the world for Carolina. I don't think anybody expected them to A, win their division, and B, get to the playoffs.
I didn't.
Oh, you did?
No.
Oh,
no, I did not.
Well,
I did not. I did not. I did
did.
not.
Oh,
no, I had Tampa Bay winning the South at the beginning of the year.
Right. Most people did.
Yeah.
I myself felt that Carolina could win.
Well, later on, after I seen what Bryce Young was able to do, I said, well, maybe if things go their way, yeah.
In this case,
and
they
it
lost
did.
the game.
Yeah.
Tampa Bay won, but they lost.
Right.
Kind of rare in the NFL where you win a game, but you lose. And that happens with the brackets. That happens with the way these divisions are sorted out, because Atlanta beat the Saints.
Right.
And so Atlanta season is a whole other matter. We can't get into that because we're talking about the playoffs.
Right.
So I can't give a dichotomy and an autopsy of the NFL season here. But Atlanta season is just kind of a could have been, should have been season, really, when you look at the later games that they played. But I'm looking at this Carolina and Rams. It's a nice matchup. That's really important. When we talk, I would say in regards to the playoffs, what do I look for as a new NFL analyst now, and I guess a fan in the past, someone who just watched games. Here's what I look for. I like rematches if the rematch would work. You know, if it's a rematch that doesn't seem to work, I'm not into it.
Right.
This rematch to me works. I like that the Rams were playing Carolina.
Okay.
I think it means that each team has a fair chance. The Rams have a chance to learn from their mistakes when they played Carolina before, to maximize their wideouts, especially Puka Nacua, and more importantly for the Rams. Here's what I will say with the Rams. They've got to run the ball against Carolina. Williams and Corum have to be an effective tandem. They have a great game. Don't depend on Matthew Stafford to win this game for you. He may very well do it for the Rams, but don't depend on him. What you need is a sustained and long running attack by the Rams. And I paid a little attention to Williams and Corum. It's a nice rushing duo that the Rams have, and I think they've been productive this year. and it's going to be interesting to see if they can get going. If the Carolina Panthers shut down the run, I think the Rams will be in trouble. If this comes down to just passing, I think they'll be in trouble. So the Rams have to run the ball against Carolina. I think Carolina needs to run as well, but that's to wear down the Rams defense. I think the Carolina could eke out a victory by passing. Again, if you look at this game, both teams, I think, had fair chances of winning. So it's not really purely the Rams. I think it's easy to say, oh, the Rams can easily win this because Carolina is hot and cold or hit and miss, and they're not consistent. But I would say both teams have very good odds of possibly winning this game. One, because they've met each other in the season, and because Carolina was able to beat them. And so the question is, I think Carolina, as I mentioned before, to repeat this, they need a game like the Packers game. They need a game like the Dallas game against the Rams, plus some of what they did in the Rams game. If they are able to do that, they could upset the Rams. And the Rams, I think, just need to rely on – they have to have a running game here. Don't get into an offensive shootout with the Carolina Panthers. I don't think that's going to work just by itself. I think you'll need a mixed attack with Carolina. And that's the way that I would look at this game.
Okay.
And I guess later I'll go with, since it's the playoffs, I'll go and make picks.
Okay, you can make picks.
Normally I never make picks on the show.
Why not?
But I will here.
Okay.
Because it's the playoffs.
It's the playoffs.
So, yeah, why not?
Why not? Okay, let's just roll down this. Let's just roll it down here. Is San Francisco too beat up to compete against Philadelphia?
You know, that's interesting because I love this matchup. This is one of my favorite matchups of this entire wild card playoff weekend. I love San Francisco versus the Eagles. I love the fact that it came down to these two teams. And here's the reason why. You look at San Francisco, you ask if they were too beat up to compete. I would say you could argue they were too beat up to compete this season. Look at the amount of
That's correct. That's correct.
They lost two of their major defensive stars, Bosa and Fred Warner. And yet this team has still been humming. This team has still been humming because Shanahan has found a way to work the algorithm in his favor. He's getting good. He got good production from some of the backups, like his backup QB, like Mac Jones. He got good production from him. You still have some playmakers like Kittle that were in, like McCaffrey that were in. So you still have a good offense. Not as good as you might have had with all these other playmakers, but still is good. I mean, the 49ers are a team that are another could-have, would-have team in some respects during the past few seasons because you wonder, with all these injuries, what could the 49ers have been? They finally have been able to work within the boundaries of a lot of injuries. And if they're too beat up to compete, then they were too beat up this season, and yet they were able to keep winning games and get into the playoffs. I would say as long as Purdy is healthy, as long as some of your playmakers are healthy, and if you get good production from some of the personnel, that the San Francisco, this is the difference. Could or should win a shootout with the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah.
I believe that the San Francisco 49ers could win a shootout with the Eagles. If you look at that 49ers game with the Bears, that was a shootout. You saw how productive Purdy was and his receivers and that offense with 49ers. They're capable of putting up points. And that doesn't bode well for the Philadelphia Eagles because they've had let's just say they've had offensive flaws all year long. Their offense has been here today, gone the next week. It's just been inconsistent. There are flashes of brilliance at times with Philadelphia, but there are also flashes of mediocrity. And the thing about this Philadelphia Eagles squad, I don't think they can win a shootout with the 49ers. I really don't think so. And they lost the game against Washington in Week 18, but they were resting their starters anyway. But when you look at this squad and you look at the Eagles, I think they need to go with Saquon Barkley. They need a great game from Saquon Barkley. And he's got to be able to have, I'd say, at least 100, 150-yard game. Or close to 100, at least 100-yard game against the 49ers. I don't think, if they can get A.J. Brown, hit A.J. Brown in the open field, that'll be great for the Philadelphia Eagles. I just think that this team, especially if this turns into a wild game like the Chargers game that the Eagles played earlier this year, I don't think it's going to bode well. The Eagles have to find a way. That defense has to stop Purdy. If they're not able to stop Purdy, the Eagles are done. That's what I would say.
Okay. Packers taking on the Bears. What about the Bears' defense makes you hopeful for the Green Bay Packers to pull off the upset?
Well, again, this is another matchup I like a lot. One, because it's a rematch. Again, what I said about rematch, if a rematch works. This, of course, is one of the oldest rivalries in the NFL.
Absolutely.
And it's a rematch of the great game. You had a great game between Chicago and Green Bay that determined, that allowed Chicago to move on eventually. Not just headed to the playoffs, but eventually they were going to go win
Hit the home field, yeah.
Right, win the division.
Yep.
I would say, in regards to the Bears defense, they've got to have the game of the year.
Okay.
That defense has got to go after, they have to have a good pass rush, but more effectively, they've got to be able to stop any run. I think the onus in this game is going to be on the Green Bay Packers. They've got to find a way to stop Caleb Williams at the end, deep in the game. They were able to do that in the first meeting this year, right? Because Caleb Williams was driving and threw a pass and it got intercepted. That's what they have to be able to do if they're going to win this. If they're going to win this playoff game. The problem, I think, with the Packers is they're beat up. And they've been losing games coming into this. I think they just feel they're competitive enough, but they're like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think they've just lost a lot.
Okay. Switching over to the AFC, Houston and Pittsburgh. Is CJ Stroud ready for the Steelers?
We'll find out, won't we?
Yeah.
I think it's on Monday, that playoff game.
Yeah.
I think here's the problem that Houston is going to face. I think that this is a team that has a great defense, but they have a better offense than it was earlier in the season. And Stroud isn't great. He's gotten progressively more and more mediocre as the seasons go. And I've said this before. I think Davis Mills coming in for about 3 games or so as a backup was a major reason why the Texans were able to resurrect themselves from the doldrums and come up. It's a good defense. The problem is that you can beat this team offensively. You look at that Colts game, the last game of the season. The Colts played a very good game, and they were able to score over 30 points against this defense of the Houston Texans. And you look at prior, the Texans also had a close game or two prior. I think their defense is vulnerable here. I think that's going to be the key here is, are they going to be able to score on this defense? The Colts demonstrated they were able to score on this defense.
Right.
And we know that Aaron Rodgers can put the ball up as he did in the game against the Ravens with that
Yes.
late fourth quarter touchdown, the go-ahead touchdown. So I think the question's going to be, is that defense going to be able to stop the Pittsburgh Steelers from scoring?
Okay.
And the run will be important for Pittsburgh. If Pittsburgh runs the ball effectively against Houston, and they're not able to stop that run, I think the Texans are in trouble.
Do Tomlin and Rodgers both come back in the fall?
Oh, that's a whole other story. I'm not going to speculate as to that because I don't know what the outcome is going to be. So I'm going to stick to the playoffs.
Okay.
I'm not going to get into whether they're going to come back QB1 or as a coach.
Right. Had to ask the question.
I'm not going to get into that.
Oh, good. Had to ask the question. Buffalo taking on Jacksonville. If you're a Jacksonville fan, how delighted are you that this game's in Florida and not Buffalo?
I'm sure that you're tickled pink. But I would say this is another matchup that I really like. I like this matchup a lot. So this is one of the best matchups of the Wildcard weekend. And the reason why is I like the fact that Buffalo isn't facing Denver. Well, Denver is not going to face them because they got the number 1 seed. Because I think they faced Denver in the playoffs last year. I like the fact that you've got Buffalo facing the Jaguars. So there's a lot of mystery in this game, right? The Jaguars have been playing well of late, and I still call them a good bad team. They're a bad team that's playing well. It's a turnaround season for them. But the problem, I think, for Jacksonville is they haven't been to the playoffs in a long time. And you're going up against a battle-hardened and battle-tested playoff team as the Bills. And this Bills team is probably going to be very hungry. The question is going to be, will the Bills' defense come up big? And I don't think the Bills can win this game solely on offense. I really don't. I don't care if Josh Allen has a great game and throws 3 touchdowns. They've got to be able or that Cook has over 100 yards. The defense of the Bills has to make plays. And this is one of the things that makes the playoffs different from the regular season. And this is what people should understand. You have to understand with playoff games that it really comes down to anywhere between 2 to 3 plays, depending on the game. I would say usually about 2 plays. If you make the right play at the right time, and the right time is just the opportune time, when all the conditions work, or some of them work, or you make the conditions work, then you can win. And so this might be one of those games where and there might be other playoff games where this happens. This might be a game. I'm thinking Bills-Jaguars might be a game where you have 2 plays that will result in either one of these teams winning. They make this play at this time in this quarter. That's what I think might happen in this game. I think the onus is going to be on Buffalo. Now they got a path forward to the Super Bowl, and I think it's going to be a lot of pressure on them. The question is, are they going to be able to handle the pressure? I don't think Jacksonville has a lot of pressure other than to win. But the Bills got a lot of pressure on them because this is it. They're not going to get too many chances, and their chances are running out in regards to the postseason.
Absolutely.
They've got to do it. And that defense has to come up. They've got to do what they did in that Cincinnati game. Get a couple of turnovers. They got to go after Trevor Lawrence. You got to get him sacked a few times. And more importantly, you've got to push them on downs. You make Trevor Lawrence go throw the ball on 3rd and 15. You don't want to give them a 3rd and 3, or even I should say a 3rd and 5, or even a 3rd and 3. You want to extend the third downs, make them long third downs, force him to throw so you can intercept the ball or bat down the ball. That's what you have to do with this team. And I think also that offensive line of the Buffalo Bills has to hold up. They're going to have a pass rush this Jacksonville, and if they could stop that pass rush, and Josh Allen may have to run, he may have to do it. I don't know if he'll stick in that pocket. He may have to run, so I'll have to be very careful, of course. But he may have to run. But I think it's really up to the Buffalo Bills defense. If the Buffalo Bills defense doesn't stop this Jaguars team, the Jaguars may have a better chance. Again, this to me is one of my favorite pairings in this entire wildcard weekend. I love this matchup because you don't know who might win. It's not predictable. It should be Buffalo, but the way the Jacksonville's been playing lately, they got a very good chance of winning. And it's not like these two play each other all the time.
No, they don't.
Aware of. So that adds to it. When you don't have people that play each other all the time, that's ideal in the playoffs.
Chargers taking on New England, 7-2 matchup in Foxborough. What about Drake May makes you hopeful for this New England Patriot team?
Well, right off the bat, I'll cite the Bills game that New England played, that helped turn around their season. The way he got the ball off as he was under duress, being hit, being dragged almost by defenders, it showed that this guy is able to execute in tight situations and difficult situations. And I think Drake May is the real pivot for that team. Of course, he's being talked about for MVP, but he's really the offensive pivot of this team. And if Drake May is able to not just have a good game, I don't think he needs a great game. People talk about the fact he hasn't thrown over 300 yards. He doesn't really need to. It would be good if he does, but he doesn't really need to. This is another matchup I really like. I like this. I like this a lot more than, I admit New England and Jacksonville might have been interesting, but I really like this because the Chargers won't be facing the Texans as they did last year and got demolished. I think it's going to be interesting because the question is going to be with the Chargers. Is their offensive line going to hold? That was an issue last year in the playoffs. Will their offensive line hold up? That's crucial. Justin Herbert has to be able to have enough clean pockets to get the ball off to his receivers. More importantly, the Chargers have to run. I don't care what they do in regards to running. I don't care if they go for yak on short passes. They've got to run the ball. You've got to do it against New England because New England, I assume New England will be using Ramondre Stevenson as many times as they can, or a number of times. If Stevenson isn't running, and I'll say this much about the Chargers. The Chargers have shown, they can play very well against some good teams. And if the Chargers shut down Ramondre Stevenson, if they shut down the run for New England, I think New England's in trouble because you have that pivot. That allows Drake May not to have to throw the ball so many yards and have so many pass attempts. If you shut that run down, I think it forces Drake May to pass. Now, he's dangerous as a passer, but if you make them one-dimensional, I think the Chargers will have a better chance in this game. Otherwise, I think what New England needs to do, they need to do what the Texans did last year. That defense has to shred that offensive line against the Chargers. That offensive line is beat up, and so you've got to hit that line. It's interesting. You don't have the thing with the Patriots is you don't have a lot of stars. You don't have a lot of playmakers. This is a team that, again, is about what Vrabel has done is maximizing personnel. He's not got a lot of great draft picks and a lot of veterans and stars on that team. It's a team with a bunch of players that are executing well, that are making plays, and that are not stars. So that's the interesting thing. So it's going to be very interesting. This is, again, another, like I said, in regards to Um, you know, um, I think of uh, not the same. Again, I think this is a game that's going to be one of the more interesting. It's not only one of the most interesting matchups. This one may really go down to the wire. This might be the hottest game of the playoffs.
Wow.
Chargers, New England.
Okay.
Maybe I don't like to make predictions, but I think this is going to be one of the hottest. I think this has the potential to be a great game.
Okay.
And I really like this matchup. I'm really hoping Justin Herbert has a good game, even if he loses, but he really has a good game. But the onus, right now, I think you've got, because the Patriots are a team in progress, and because it's a rebuilding year, even though as well as they played, you don't have the stars and you don't have the experience other than in the coaching. And that may translate. You got Josh McDaniel as OC, as offensive coordinator, and you've got Mike Vrabel. They have playoff experience, right? So that may help, but we'll see what happens. I'm really up on this game. I think it may be one of the best games of the playoffs.
I know you're going to make picks here in a moment, but before you do, I'm going to ask this question. I don't want you to give me a Super Bowl team, but I will say Seahawks are the betting favorites. If I could say you could have Seattle or the field, you would take what?
Meaning the field in the NFC, I gather. Right?
No, betting favorite to win the Super Bowl 60 is Seattle. Are you taking Seattle to win it all or the field?
If they make it to the Super Bowl, I think they could win.
Okay.
I've already said, I think on this show and maybe elsewhere, I've already said in the NFC, I think it's between either the Rams or the Seahawks. Those are the two teams that I'd like. Either one of those teams I'd like to see go to the Super Bowl personally. And I would be fine if the Chicago Bears did too. So those three teams I would. The only team, when it comes to teams that I wouldn't want to see there, Green Bay and Philadelphia.
Okay.
I think it would be bad because once you get to this area, it's about matchups. And to me, it's about what are the best matchups in a Super Bowl. Not necessarily what are the best teams, but what are the best matchups. And Seahawks would be a great team to match up, depending on who's on the AFC side. So I made it very clear, in that case, I would take Seahawks.
Okay.
And I would state, as I have before, I either see the Rams or Seahawks possibly going to the Super Bowl, and I would be fine with either one of them. Those are the ones I'd like to see. And Chicago would be the third best in that regard.
Okay. Let's I guess not Friday night predictions, but Monday night predictions presented by no one. We'll say we've got we'll start in the AFC Monday night, 8:15 Eastern on ESPN and ABC. Number 4 Steelers, number 5 Texans. Who do you got in Pittsburgh?
For Houston and Pittsburgh, realistically, after this game, I'm going to go with the Steelers.
Okay.
Now, granted, I'm biased because I'm a Steeler fan, but outside of that, when I look at the state of play and I look at the fact they'll probably get DK Metcalf back, and I also look at the fact that Houston that defense has given up points recently. Unless Houston has a great game in which their defense makes no mistakes, they just seem like a team that is a one win and then done team. They really can't advance. And they haven't had a great year. They've had a good year, but not a great year. So I'm going to go with Pittsburgh over Houston.
Okay. Jaguars taking on the Bills. That is Sunday afternoon, 1 o'clock on CBS.
This is, again, one of my favorite games of the Wildcard weekend. And I think it's one of the best matchups of the weekend. I'm going to go with Buffalo over Jacksonville. And I wouldn't be surprised if this is an overtime game.
Number 2, Patriots hosting the Los Angeles Chargers. Sunday Night Football, 8 Eastern on NBC and Peacock.
I would have to say it could go either way in this game. I really do think. I think if New England makes a couple of mistakes in this game, I think they'll end up losing it. But realistically, I'd have to go with the New England Patriots. Okay. So in this one, it's kind of a dual choice. I would say either of these teams could win it. Okay. But the other choice the firm choice would be the New England Patriots.
4:30 on Saturday afternoon. The number 4 Panthers host the number 5 Rams on Fox.
I would say, despite their previous meeting, which was in the season, and despite Carolina's ability to play well in some games, unless the Rams have a totally catastrophic game, and there are worrying signs with the Rams. You know, they've played some closer games recently. You know, they are beaten by Atlanta. I would say this might end up being a very close game, and I go with the Rams in this one.
4:30 Sunday evening on Fox, the reigning defending world champion Philadelphia Eagles play host to the 49ers.
To be brutally honest, the 49ers have shown that they can put up points on the board, that, you know, despite the Seahawks game, where they didn't do so well in terms of points, they've shown in the Bears game and other games that they can put up points. I think if Purdy is healthy, I think if this offense plays well, and more importantly, if the defense makes some surprising, is better and makes some plays, I honestly believe that the 49ers can upset the Eagles, and so I'll go with the 49ers.
Okay. Saturday night on Prime Video, tell Al Michaels he's going to Chicago, not Valparaiso. Don't want him to get confused. It's the Bears taking on the Packers on Prime. You think Al Michaels knows he's calling the Bears Packers?
I sure hope so. I think that would be kind of embarrassing for Amazon if he isn't.
Last month he told viewers Super Bowl 15 happened at SoFi Stadium. Anyway, but
really?
Yes, don't.
That was a memo I didn't get.
Yeah.
I guess it's sort of like, hello, folks.
Yeah.
Where am I?
Yes.
What is this place?
Right.
I'm in a booth?
Right.
What am I doing here? So, getting to the Green Bay-Chicago game, again, this is another matchup I really like. And I look at Green Bay, they have been in the playoffs recently, but this team is beat up. And I think they're just slightly better, as I mentioned before, than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They've lost their personnel. They don't have the insurance policy on defense that Micah Parsons was. That's a big blow. And I would say they just would. I mean, depending on who plays, whether it's Jordan Love or whether it's Malik Willis, I just don't. I just don't see them being able to focus. They'd probably be interrupted, just like that sound was. I don't know if this team can sustain a playoff game. That's the thing that I would look at. I think this team's beat up. And the Chicago Bears still have their personnel. And you never know because it's a rivalry. So when you're a rivalry, you're playing people it's different than a regular game,
right,
even in the playoffs. So this is unusual. This is interesting because it's Chicago and Green Bay in a playoff game. I don't know if there have been too many of those during the NFL, during the years of the NFL.
Just a handful of times. It doesn't happen very often. I know the Colts and the Titans have done it. Packers, Bears, I think the Ravens and the Steelers, Browns back in the day, among others. But
so,
yeah.
it really comes down to me. I think the only way that they're going to be able to win. I look at Chicago, and I think this is a team that can win in the fourth quarter. They can win in the second half. And so, much like as they used to say on Saturday Night Live, I'm going to go with the Bears.
Yes.
The Bears are going to win. Okay. That's what I'm picking. The Bears.
Very good. Very good. And you.
Or Chicago Bears.
Yes. You can watch NFL Wildcard Weekend, January 10th through the 13th on CBS, Fox, NBC, ESPN, and Amazon Prime Video. Visit NFL.com for times in your area and what channel the game is on, and all of that jazz. Where if we can't find the NFL clicker, where do we go to listen to your NFL show, The Wise Guys Show?
Right. So you can go and check out The Wise Guys Show on my official YouTube channel, Ryder Albert Lanier. That's at Ryder Albert Lanier 3434 in terms of the YouTube link, I guess, or however that works. I'm not a tech guy. But at Ryder Albert Lanier 3434, I guess if you want to look it up. It's also known as Ryder Albert Lanier. My last regular season episode, week 18, is already out. Okay. So check that out, folks. Check out the last season episode of the Wise Guys Show on the Ryder Albert Lanier channel. It looks like I'll be doing playoffs, but I'm not sure whether I'll do one playoff episode or multiple. I'll have to figure that out in the next few days.
Okay. Sounds good. And just a reminder, Super Bowl 60 is on NBC and Peacock Sunday, February the 7th. I say that with a hesitant in my voice. I had it, then I lost it. Sunday, February 8th, on NBC, Super Bowl 60 in sunny Santa Clara, California.
Right.
He is...
So, the 49ers will have something to play for, obviously, yes. Meaning not having to travel if they make the Super Bowl again.
Yes.
But, of course, you can check out all the playoff action on NBC and maybe
ABC, ESPN, CBS, Fox, and Prime.
Fox, and, of course, Paramount Plus on CBS.
Yes. Yes. He's Albert. I'm Ryder. Stay tuned for more Ryder Report after this.